In a stunning yet not so stunning move, Christy Wallace has elected not to come back to the Indiana Fever.
Fans are speculating about who should take Christy Wallace's place as the Indiana Fever's new captain, but is Powers the correct choice or simply another dubious roster choice? Some claim she's just what the team needs, while some believe that Indiana should seek elsewhere. Let's examine everything in detail.
And I cannot say that it does not seem like the Indiana Fever were not aware of this decision, as Christy Wallace has elected not to come back, and according to a press release, she says this: "This has not been an easy decision for me, but one that I make knowing it is what is in my best interest at this time. I would like to thank the Fever organization for working with me throughout this process, giving me both time and consideration, and for their support of my decision. I look forward to cheering the team from afar."
Christy Wallace's announcement that she would be leaving the Indiana Fever for the 2025 season caused a stir among the fan base. Some anticipated it, while others were caught completely off guard. However, there was no doubt that the team now had a void to fill, and a new dialogue began. It didn't take long for admirers to begin arguing that Brewing should be replaced by Aerial Powers. Powers' name appeared all over social media, with fans urging the Fever to sign her. To be honest, it makes sense why people are pushing for it. She has experience, has established herself as a scorer, and is coming off a successful run overseas. On paper, it sounds exciting to see her take the court with Caitlin Clark, but the problem is that not everyone is certain this is the right decision. There is a completely different viewpoint on this issue that calls into question whether Powers is truly what Indiana needs at this time. Before we even discuss fit, let's go back a little and examine how the Fever have been assembling their squad over the past few years. After years of floundering at the bottom of the league, Indiana has been in full-on rebuild mode, and they finally caught a break with Aaliyah. Boston was their #1 pick in 2023, and it was a game changer. Boston made an impact right away, demonstrating that she was the franchise's the Fever had been lacking a cornerstone, but obtaining a single star player wasn't sufficient. The Fever required genuine support. Assemble a group capable of transforming them from a losing squad into a serious contender, and that's where Caitlin Clark enters the picture. Clark's entrance has fundamentally changed the story of Indiana, is that she's one of the most talked about players in years, giving the team immediate attention and energy. Suddenly, the WNBA went from being an afterthought to one of the most watched teams. The question now isn't just about replacing Wallace. It's about creating a roster around Clark and Boston that can truly compete at the highest level, which is where the controversy surrounding Aerial Powers comes in. Powers is the kind of player who can provide immediate offense. She is a pure scorer who can attack the hoop with her own shot and hit from deep when she feels like it. If you watched her play for the Minnesota Lynx or the Washington Mystics, you know she can put up numbers, but here's the thing. Indiana already boasts a large number of guards and wings, but more significantly, they are working to establish a certain style of play. With Caitlin Clark leading the team, the Fever's attack will be centered on ball movement and space. When teammates move off the ball, make snap judgments, and extend the floor in high-tempo, smart basketball, Clark isn't the type of guy who would ISO every possession. Does Powers fit into that system? That's where things start to get divided. Some contend that Powers' ability to create her own shot makes her a great fit because if teams start doubling Clark, which they will undoubtedly do, having someone like Powers who can take advantage of those openings could be huge because she would have a reliable scoring option to kick the ball to instead of Clark having to force difficult shots. However, Powers isn't known for being a great off-ball player. She's at her best when she has the ball in her hands, and when she can create for herself. That's great for certain situations, but it begs the question of whether she would actually fit in seamlessly in a system that is meant to flow through Clark. And then there's the defensive side of things. If you look at the WNBA landscape right now, the teams that are consistently winning championships aren't just built on offense. They have elite defensive pieces that hold everything together. Take the Las Vegas Aces, for example. A.A. Wilson fixing Chelsea Gray's paint job, securing the perimeter, and working as a team. They differ from teams that are simply effective offensively because of their broad defensive mindset, which makes them difficult to score on. Despite all the hoopla surrounding Clark, Indiana still needs to improve their defense. Aaliyah Boston is a formidable force on the inside, but they suffer against teams with dominant big men. They need guys that can effectively guard several spots, have greater size, and be more defensively versatile. Although Powers is a good defender, some supporters believe Indiana should choose a different kind of player because she isn't necessarily a game changer on that end. Despite not being a superstar, Christy Wallace contributed grit, hustle, and sound defensive instincts to the squad. If the Fever are looking to replace Wallace, they should consider her. Powers isn't precisely a like-for-like exchange, which raises further issues. Following Wallace's departure, the Fever freed up around $80,000 in cap space for Indiana. This may seem like a lot, but in the WNBA, money is limited, every contract counts, and clubs must be frugal with their spending. Powers has already been on big contracts before. With the Lynx, she was making around $155,000 per year. She's probably not looking to take a huge pay cut, especially when she's still proving she can compete at a high level. So if Indiana were to sign her, they'd have to figure out the financial side of things. And that brings up another question: is Powers the best way to spend that money? The Fever could also look at younger players, defensive-minded wings, or even a true backup center with that cap space. Some fans are already calling for them to find a 66 or 67 big who can help against taller teams. And that's a fair point, because if IND really wants to compete for a championship, they can't just load up on scorers, they need balance. Now, that's not to say Powers wouldn't bring value. She absolutely would. She's still a proven player with a chip on her shoulder. She's been overlooked before, and when she gets an opportunity, she plays like she's got something to prove. Plus, her connection with fans is real. Powers is one of those athletes who genuinely engages with fans on the internet, answers their messages, and welcomes their enthusiasm. This is uncommon in sports, which is one of the reasons why so many Fever supporters are urging her to visit Indiana. Where does this all leave us at this point? Indiana's front office must now decide what kind of move they want to make if they're looking for immediate offense and veteran experience. She has already seen the tweets, Instagram posts, and Reddit threads. She knows the fans want her, and she's not ignoring them. Instead, she's participating in the conversation, which makes things even more interesting. Powers is a solid choice. She can come and give them scoring depth and provide a veteran presence in the locker room. But if they're thinking about long-term roster construction, defense, and positional needs, then they might need to go in a different direction. And that's what makes this situation so fascinating. There's no clear answer. What we do know is that the Fever are in a crucial moment. They've got Caitlin Clark, they've got Aaliyah Boston, and they have a rare opportunity to build something special. But every move they make from here on out matters, because in the WNBA, talent alone isn't enough. It's about building the right team. So now the question is Aerial Powers part of that plan? That's what we're all waiting to find out now that we've broken down the immediate situation with Christy Wallace's departure and the possibility of Aerial Powers joining the Fever. Let's take a step back and look at the bigger picture. This decision isn't just about filling a roster spot, it's about Indiana's long-term strategy and how they plan to build a true championship. A contest between Aaliyah Boston and Caitlin Clark, the title Fever, hasn't been taken seriously. After years of rebuilding, switching players, and searching for the ideal formula, Contender has added Clark to the mix. Everything is altered. Looking at previous WNBA champions will help us understand what Indiana needs to do. The Las Vegas Aces, for instance, are the current WNBA standard. They didn't become dominant overnight. It took years of strategic roster building, the acquisition of important free agents, and the creation of a team identity that functions at the highest level. The way the Aces built around their superstar, A.A. Wilson, is what really makes them dangerous. They added Chelsea Gray, one of the league's best floor generals, and Kel Plum, a lights-out shooter who perfectly fits their system. Their size, defensive toughness, and depth in every position are what set good teams apart from great teams. Let's compare that to Indiana. Their A.A. Wilson equivalent is Aaliyah Boston, a strong young player with paint control. Their Caitlin Clark is still a work in progress, but Kelsey Plum meets Chelsea Gray, a powerful guard who can score, facilitate, and alter the game. The Fever must choose their team type. Are they aiming to be a fast-paced, high-scoring unit? Are they defensively oriented? Do they require more seasoned leadership? Or should they prioritize developing young players who can develop with Clark and Boston? This is where the Aerial Powers debate gets complex. Aerial powers in comparison to other draft choices and free agents. If Indiana signs aerial powers, she would provide them with an offensive boost right away, which is valuable, but is she the greatest choice? Other free agents, foreign players, and draft prospects might still be a better match. For instance, a bigger wing or a forward with a defensive mindset might be more beneficial for the Fever than another scorer. Additionally, if the Fever sign a contract that restricts their ability to make future decisions, how much money are they willing to spend? What if a better player becomes available in a few months? What if a significant trade opportunity arises? WNBA teams must prepare for the future. They cannot only focus on current season. Beyond how aerial powers would fit into a Caitlin Clark system, one of the most crucial factors to think about is how powers would actually fit next to Clark on the court. Clark is a skilled passer and playmaker who performs best when surrounded by shooters and intelligent players who can move without the ball. On the other hand, she has been a high-usage player who is accustomed to having the ball in her hands and making her own shots. Would she be willing to change her style of play to fit into a system that is centered around Clark? The key question is whether she would be comfortable playing more off-ball, taking fewer shots, and concentrating more on defense and spacing. Powers must support the team's goals if the Fever brings him in. Otherwise, they run the risk of ruining the chemistry they're trying to create. The team needs more than just scoring, and it's now obvious that Indiana still needs more size and depth up front. Some players can adjust to new roles, while others find it difficult to do so. Aaliyah Court Boston is a powerful force, but she can't handle everything by herself at the moment. The Fever struggle against teams that are taller than them, like the New York Liberty, who have players like Breanna Stewart and J.N. Quell-Jones. Because they aren't big enough to compete, many fans aren't convinced that the Fever need to sign Powers. They want a legitimate backup center who can guard the rim, grab rebounds, and relieve pressure on Boston. What if the Fever wait and make a bigger move? Another choice is for Indiana to wait before making a major signing. Rather than signing Powers right away, they could hold onto their cap space and see how the season unfolds. If they start the season well but later decide they need a defensive anchor or another veteran leader, they will have more flexibility to make a trade or sign a free agent who truly meets that need. Fans have voiced their desire for Powers, but the front office must consider what's best for the club, not simply what the fans want. Powers may limit their options in the future. What will the Fever actually do at this point? Nobody knows precisely what Indiana is going to do. The Indiana Fever are at a turning point. They have the talent and star power. Now, it's all about making the right decisions to transform this team into a true contender. If they really think Powers is the missing piece, we might see her in a Fever jersey soon. However, if they're looking at the big picture, they might choose to take a different approach. If not, one thing is certain. The team is at a turning point. This entire conversation brings to light a larger problem. Indiana must make strategic roster decisions. They cannot simply select players at random. Instead, they must assemble a cohesive team that maximizes Aaliyah's potential and complements Caitlin Clark's skill set. Boston's impact at the moment is uncertain, but their choice will reveal a lot about their future course. Are aerial powers the solution, or should the Fever search elsewhere? We're all waiting to see what happens next, so that's the big question. Do you think the Indiana Fever should go for bulk and defense instead of bringing in aerial powers? Let us know what you think by leaving a comment below. Please remember to like this video if you liked this breakdown. Additionally, subscribe for more updates and remain tuned until the next time.